Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Parasha Pointers, where we dwell and we delve into the Parasha each week to get inspiration of how we could raise our children, raise ourselves. This week's edition is sponsored in honor of Alexendrine Cohen by her husband Eli Cohen. And it's also sponsored for refuah Shelema of Rachel bat Chaya, Be'ezrat Hashem. So, we have an unbelievable pasuk in this week's parasha. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayomer Hashem, Ra'o ra'iti et oni ami. I see the affliction of my nation, of my people. I see what they're going through. And it continues, and at the end of the pasuk, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Ki yadati et machovav. I know their pain. Knowledge, knowing their pain. So there's a lot going on in this pasuk. Because the pasuk says, Hashem says, I'm noticing them, I hear their pain, and then he says, and I know. If he hears and he sees, of course he knows. So the Rabbeinu Chaya explains something very deep, and it's a very important point. He says that seeing and hearing what's going on, if you see a person, what they're going through, and you hear what they're going through, it's very important. But if it does not translate into understanding what they're going through, it is worthless. And let me read you the words that he says. He says, because if one does not understand and draw the necessary conclusions of what he has seen and heard, his perceptions are of no value. Now, parents always say, I want my son to talk to me. I want my daughter to talk to me. I want them to come to me. I want to hear what they have to say. I have news for you. If they don't feel that you're a destination that understands them, they're not going to talk to you. And they're not going to share with you. Let me tell you something. The art of communication is something that is so important. It's so big. It's important in business. It's important in life. It's important with our children, our spouses. It's the art of communication. But the way you communicate with someone is as follows. Let me give you an example. Your son comes and says, 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid, whatever the age. I can't stand that I have to share my room with my brother. It stinks. I hate it. And now what are you thinking? Get over it. When I was a kid, I shared my room with 5 of my siblings. We didn't even have a normal room. We didn't even have any. What are you doing? Where's your hakarat hatov? Now, by the way, it's true what's being said. The content is true. But there's one ingredient that's missing here. Before you give them musar, before you tell them whatever you want to tell them, stop for a moment and validate their feelings. Because if they don't feel that their feelings are validated, their feelings are a reality. The reality is they're feeling frustrated, they're feeling upset. I hear your feelings. Your feelings we cannot negate the way a person feels. But after you tell them, I understand how you're feeling, I hear you, I understand you. That's how you're feeling, and then you can try to help them. I once heard an amazing piece of advice. It's called the 3 V's of how you communicate. I use it all the time with people, with my students. The 3 V's are my children. Vent, validate, weiter. Weiter is a Yiddish word, but it means to move on, to go on to the next step, to figure out how we're going to grow from this situation. So whenever you're talking to somebody and they're talking to you, let them first of all vent. Let them let it all out. Validate their feelings. I understand. That's how you feel. It's frustrating. It's hard. You're upset. You're sad. You're pained. Whatever it might be. But now, let's go weiter. How are we going to move from here? How are we going to grow? I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Vent, validate, weiter. Big stuff. Okay, fine. Now, Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, the people are venting. They're crying. I'm validating it. I understand. But let me tell you how we're going to go weiter. How we're going to get these guys out of Mitzrayim. In last week's parasha, by the way, Yaakov Avinu asks Yosef HaSadik, please bury me in Canaan. Don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Now, Yosef would have just done whatever his father said, of course, right? He makes him swear. And then he says, I know that you're upset. I know that you might... Did Yosef say anything about being upset? Yosef's going to do whatever he's asked to do. It's his father, Kivurem. And all of a sudden, Yaakov says, I know you might be thinking that I didn't bury your mother in Canaan, in Marat HaMachpelah. I'm sorry, in Canaan, in Marat HaMachpelah. I put her on the road by Bethlehem. And now I'm asking you to do something that I didn't even do for your mother. Maybe you're holding it, you're upset. when did he say he was upset? You see from here an amazing point. Yaakov Avinu understood that his child needs to be understood. It's in there. I gotta let it out. I gotta make sure that I understand him. This is a very important point with our children. If you want your child to talk to you, validate what they say. Validate their feelings. Does not mean you have to agree with what they're saying. A lot of times they're off, they're rocker. Doesn't matter. You still have to hear them. You have to validate them. I heard a beautiful story, by the way, of how important this is, of a soldier who went and he was part of the liberation, an American soldier in World War II, and he liberated the camps, and there was a kid on the floor who was so weak. He was like, and they were giving out soup to all the kids to get them energy again. There was a line for the soup, but this kid could not get up for the line. And this soldier, Abraham, went over to this little kid and picked him up and held him and started to talk to him. And he listened to him, and he was a listening ear, and he comforted him, and he heard him, and he validated him, everything. And all of a sudden there was a line. And Abraham's like, I don't have any soup here. Why is there a line? The line was not for the soup. He realized these kids needed a listening ear.